doing today?
Not too bad.
Good.
So I put 4 o'clock, but it's a beautiful day,
Yeah.
so I'm glad to make the most of it.
Yeah. I met you through couch surfing,
Yes.
and the first it didn't work the first time, but
Okay.
yeah, but later on, I found my way to here. So, and it's through couch surfing that we know each other. So, I've had a good time.
Great.
Yeah, and I hope it's the same for you.
Yes, it's been fun
Yeah.
and really helpful to have support in the house and professional cooking going on in the kitchen every night.
Mm. And what can you talk about couch surfing yourself?
I've been hosting for a few years, not every year, and I've had some great experiences of Chinese, European people who stayed here and made the most of the Peak District and the shops in Sheffield.
So what was the most interesting thing out of couch surfing?
I've just had some really I had a great chat with David here, and also Natalia, who came from China, who is very, very inspiring in her focus and determination to go to Edinburgh and climb a mountain in the Peak District.
Yeah.
And find her way around independently.
Yeah, what did you find less interesting with couch surfing?
Less interesting was when I had a group of European teenagers who kind of just didn't really talk to me, just kind of talked amongst themselves in the kitchen.
Yeah. So what would you advise anybody who is couch surfing? How do they get to know you, and how should they behave, or how should they, in general, how should they carry themselves?
Well, find out what your interests are and what you like to do, and if there's any jobs around the house, it can be really helpful to volunteer to do those.
Okay. So couch surfing is actually not a business. I mean, people don't come in and pay you, and so they have a chance to at least show some kind of gratitude to being in the.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Repaying for a place to stay with some whatever skills they can offer, cooking or language skills, or walking dog skills, or putting up pictures, unblocking drains, as you helpfully did.
Okay. Yeah, good. So maybe we could just look around. Yeah. We could just go to the garden. That's a good garden. It's very warm today.
Yeah, it's about best little stretch of hot weather we've had.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All my little willow buds coming out here.
Yeah.
And the plum here. And the mushrooms down there. And so many little new signs of life. And the birds collecting for their nests. And bonfire.
Yeah.
ash all spread across the lettuce patch.
And then you have a house here.
And then the house too. And the cabin. Yeah, this is the cabin for the couch surfers. It's a bit chilly and drafty, that's the only thing.
But it's got inside, it's got
But it's got space.
It's got space
And it's dry.
And it's dry.
And curtains even.
Yeah.
And a carpet, so what more could you want?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah.
And
so talk about how did you get to this place?
I got here 13 years ago after being very much a couch surfer myself, in a way. I used to stay in one place for maybe 6 months to a year, or a bit longer sometimes. Then I got feeling like restlessness and anxious, so I would think I'd go somewhere new, and I did many house shares, often with landlords or landladies, often with other rental agreements, and in the end I got sick of it, so well, in the end, it's a long story.
Yeah.
I ended up with a council flat, and then I ended up with a council house, and this has been the longest I've ever stayed anywhere.
So you've moved around some places?
Yeah, I've lived in Brighton, I've lived in Lincolnshire, I've lived in London, lived in Italy and China and Loughborough and Leicester and Aberystwyth, and and Kent briefly, and this is Sheffield, and this, like, I've just thought, well, it's in the middle of the country, so it's halfway between Lincolnshire and Lancashire, which were my parents' home counties, and the people are friendly and relatively cheap to live, and there's still lots of services for people to get what their needs met.
Yeah. And do you feel like this is home, or do you feel like you want to go home?
That's probably a question I'll always be asking myself, because I'm not from here, I'm from Lincolnshire, so there's certain elements of Sheffield that I still feel are culturally confusing, and the language, the accent is not familiar to me.
Do you have some accent from here? Can you say something?
A little bit.
Say something from here.
Something in Yorkshire.
Yes.
Alright. You're right.
And that would mean?
Are you alright?
Okay. Yeah. Yes, okay. And then how do you say it in your?
My hometown did have an accent, but I didn't pick it up. Yeah. Really, I've just got a kind of generic slightly southern accent. It's a little bit tinged by Yorkshire now, but not much. Yeah, we're kind of posh up here, really.
Okay. So while we're waiting for the tea, maybe I could ask you a few questions about your coming all the way from where you came from to Sheffield.
Okay.
So how many places have you moved to in your life?
Well, I worked it out that I've moved on average, well, up until I came to Sheffield in 2002, I had moved on average between the ages of 18 and 36, on average of every 9 months. Not always a different city, but sometimes a different city and often a different house. That was based on trying to find work or telling myself that I needed to find a certain level of security in a job. I travelled to China to teach English after graduating with a TEFL course, and then when I came back home it was very difficult to reintegrate into the life here with all the amenities that we take for granted, and the language obviously, and the food and the weather and everything being so new to me again. And so yeah, I was pretty desperate really, and I missed China.
How was China?
Well, China had so many surprises around every corner, things that you wouldn't expect, I suppose we wouldn't see here, things that people carried on bicycles down the street, like enormous cages of birds, and the equivalent to a bale of hay, balanced on the back of someone's bike. And it was just always a bit of a comedy act, but there was this undercurrent of tragedy as well because of the state of the government and the oppression and the terrible way that they've taken Tibet as their own and treating the people as the slaves really, or as their what's the word when you take over a country anyway? Colonized, yeah. Yes. And they've well, it's a long story, but obviously their treatment of the spiritual, cultural heritage of Tibet is beyond appalling. So I came away with very mixed feelings, and I didn't go back. I thought I might go back, but there's also so much history there that's desperate to be found, to be uncovered and learnt about. The language, the medicine is amazing, and the way they heal is amazing, the acupuncture and so on. So I tried to get a taste of all aspects of Chinese life, travelled around a bit, taught in a school, learned a little bit of the language.
Can you speak a bit of Chinese? Can you say something?
你好，你学中文吗? Something. 谢谢.
And that means?
That means hello. I'm from England. Thank you.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So what is this major thing that pulled you to China?
I think it was some quirky kind of childlike curiosity, really, for the beautiful, dainty figurines and embroidery and things that I suppose I'd seen in the media, or the sweetness and simplicity that I suppose I imagined was inherent in the country and in the people.
And when you came back, what is the greatest thing that you feel you miss from China?
I think I do miss the community. Being a big gang, everything would be organised as a group, you'd be included in. I suppose it was on some sense it was the feeling of being included in. You were part of something and you had to go along with it, which sometimes obviously caused rifts, but was also quite social mm-hmm. and easier, because you're much more isolated here. Everyone's a bit too individualistic and too much swung that way now, really. So everybody's got their own way of doing things, and all these petty disputes about the best way to do something, which wouldn't occur in China, because there is one way to do it.
Yeah.
And it's the party way, but also that's not what I mean when I say do everything. Everyone has to do everything the same, but there is an element of, we go up for on a mountain walk, and everyone would show up at the same time and go on the walk and be. Yeah.
So did you meet any English people?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean my other the other teachers in the school were English. There's about 4 of us, and there was tourists, and there were other travellers. There was a woman from Belgium, and a guy from Canada, and yeah, there was loads of, especially in the schools, loads of foreigners.
Okay, I think our tea is ready. We can have it first. Yeah. So now you came back to England.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and then what did you do? I mean, how did you get back to integrating or getting a job and getting a house?
It took a while. I was at the airport. I arrived back in Heathrow Airport, and there was an intercom announcement for me to go to the customer services, and it was my sister had left a message saying I could go and stay at her house. So it was like last minute reprieve. I didn't actually know where I was going to go. I didn't have a house to go to, and I wouldn't have been able to go to my parents because my dad was remarried and wasn't welcome there. So I went to my sister's in Peterborough, and I started looking to use the skills I'd learnt, the teaching skills. So I got a job at Leicester College.
Leicester College is in Peterborough?
No, it's in Leicester.
Leicester. Okay.
So I had to commute.
Okay.
I used to cycle to the station and get the train. And I did a bit of teaching there, and then in the summer of the following year I got a job in the summer school at Loughborough University, which is a great little town. I really liked it, and they provided accommodation. But I was in effect, I'd put all my family heirlooms into storage because I'd inherited some big pieces of furniture from my parents. I put all that in storage, so I was really effectively living, carrying a few suitcases around. And then we were accommodated by Loughborough University in a shared accommodation. Started off with me and these 3 guys, and 2 of them left and 2 women moved in, and we had quite a fun time. Well, we did have a great time actually. We had a fun time, but it was hard work teaching every day full time and living with strangers or relative strangers, and then that all came to a sudden end at the end of that summer, and I'd sort of run out of resources by then. I'd moved so many times, and I'd carried my possessions with me so many times, and said goodbye so many times, and made new friends so many times, and I'd really run out of resources by then, and felt like I'd come to the end of that, whatever had been driving me on. I didn't know what to do.
That was after how long?
I'd been back in the country maybe 2 years, just living like day to day, and with no particular plan or ability to see the future or how things would pan out. And then again, last minute reprieve was a job. I was offered a job at Sheffield University in the language teaching department.
That's good.
The reason, perhaps, I always wondered why they took me on. I suppose I suffered low self-esteem, so I didn't think they would take me on just because I was, they thought I'd be good at it. But I had been in China, and there was a load of Chinese students just starting to take root in the universities here, so they were impressed, I suppose, that I'd been there and that I had some level of understanding. So that kicked me off of kind of, I think, maybe 10 years teaching English in the universities in Sheffield.
So you taught 10 years?
Well, on and off for about 10 years. Between the ages of, between returning from China and then I got pregnant around, later.
Yeah.
Late in life, considering, relatively speaking, late for having a baby. So that put an end to my teaching or my career, searching for a career, and that also gave me it gave me a house because the council were obliged to rehouse me in somewhere with space for a child, and that put an end